Welcome to Rust is Gold Racing Podcast. This is episode 39 on March 18th, 2020. We're doing something a little bit different here today. We have our special guest in the house, Emily Romero, and I'm here with
Tyson Garcia.
Tyson Hollywood Garcia, right there. For those of you who have not seen us before, we are here in the lounge and we are videotaping this time to put some content out on the web for our web series. I am Stephen Phoenix Mays. It's a weird time right now, right, Tyson?
It's a little bit. We also forgot that Cash Dog is in the house.
Cash Dog in the house.
So if you ever wanted to see what he looked like, he'll be here pretty much every episode since this is his couch. And he owns this couch, so he's going to be our guest pretty much each and every day, right?
That's right. We tried to set up today, and he would not budge.
He wouldn't move.
He was staying there, snoring away.
And he knows it. He knows when you're talking about him. So what's going on, Steve?
Oh, man. You know, I'm not going to go doom and gloom.
Okay.
It's we all know what's going on, you know, and we're all going to try and get through it as best we can. And some of this content is for some of you that are stuck at home. We're going to try and keep pushing through. And, you know, part of being an American is being optimistic, right? We've been through some stuff, and we always come out of it on the other end. And I think we're going to come out of this on the other end for the better, I think, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, everything hurts at first, right? Ripping off that Band-Aid for the first time was always tricky. So I think it's going to be nice to see. I want to see people come together, right? And I think it would be nice to see the community get stronger, people be a little bit more compassionate towards each other. And I think hopefully after this initial shock of everything happens, that we start to come back together as we did for previous events, such as, 9/11. Everyone kind of rallied around New York and Oklahoma City bombing and, major catastrophes. I feel like hopefully bring out the best in people and not the worst.
Yeah.
So I hope we start to see that sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So for those of you out there that are stuck at home or been affected by this in some way, we're all here for you, for each other, and send us some feedback and some ideas if you want us to put out some content that is available online that you can watch and share with your friends. And I think it's going to be an interesting time. We're going to try and do some YouTube content, right? We got a YouTube series that we're starting.
True. We've been working on this for a little bit, and we've been kind of, as Steven knows more so than I do, like how to take a direction of a series, how to take a direction of a show, and how to make it all kind of fit together. So we've shot a lot of stuff, and now we just got to figure out what do our viewers and our listeners want to see. So I don't know. I hope they like it.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
We'll put it out there. You tell us if you like it or if you don't like it. But right now, we're on a rainy Wednesday afternoon here in the lounge at Rust is Gold Coffee and Garage, and we have a special guest, Emily Romero. Motorcycle enthusiast, dirt bike rider, racer. Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I work for a marketing company. I got into dirt bikes when I was 18. That's when I bought my first dirt bike and just got addicted to it really quickly. It became a passion, so I've kind of just followed the motorsports world since then. Yeah. Okay,
but you said your father raced motorcycles earlier, right?
Yeah, so this was before I was born, but him and my uncle would drag race Harleys. So they would travel around to Arizona, around New Mexico, racing them. So I would always hear the stories about, the trouble they got into and riding bikes, and that kind of started I was really interested in that and really liked the stories and the stuff behind all of that history.
So did he grow up in New Mexico also?
Yeah, so he was born and raised in Taos, New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
So they were... They actually owned a gas station and a mechanic shop, so they were always working on bikes, building bikes, that kind of thing.
There's a lot of Taos connection there, right?
It seems
we
like
had CK, who you met in Taos. You moved to Taos as a teenager, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are connected to Taos.
So funny.
There's not a drag strip in Taos, so what was he doing for racing?
So he was coming to Albuquerque. He was going to Arizona, but they would build the bikes down there at their garage. And then kind of just travel around. He would race them, and then my uncle would help with the building part. They used to paint their own bikes, the pinstripes, all of that. So they looked really cool, and they just did it for fun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What were they racing? Did you say? I'm sorry if I missed that.
They were drag racing Harleys.
Harleys,
Yeah.
cool.
What kind? Like Sportsters, shovels? What kind of
I'm
stuff?
not sure, to be honest. I've only seen photos of it, but it looked really cool. It looked really fun, and they have had some crazy stories of traveling and just doing that. There wasn't a lot of people that drag raced bikes back then, so it was kind of a big deal.
And this is like in the 70s, late 70s,
Yeah.
early 80s kind of, right?
Yeah, so a while ago,
Yeah.
When do you remember like first seeing them doing stuff? Do you have any memories as a little kid?
Yeah, definitely. So I lived in Taos till I was about 4 or 5 years old, and then after that we would go visit, once or twice monthly. So I remember always seeing them in the shop, like working on bikes and stuff, and then we were always riding the four-wheelers around.
Cool.
They lived on a ranch, so we would set up little tracks with the hay bales and kind of mess around on the bikes out there. So that was like the earliest memory of motorcycles.
That's super cool. There's nothing like being out on like a ranch or
Yeah.
open fields to just tear it
Definitely.
up with no issues, right? It's always fun.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have 3 brothers, 2 older, 1 younger. Yeah.
Okay, so you have 3 brothers, and then
Yeah.
you're the only daughter in the family.
Yeah.
Did they all ride also?
No, that's the
Really?
weird part. Yeah, so growing up, I was the only one that took interest in motorsports at all. So that was kind of the tough part, was my parents couldn't really justify like getting me a bike because that was something that was pretty expensive, but my brothers weren't into it. So it was like, well, okay, we'll just kind of wait till you're older, or if you still really like it when you're older, we'll figure something out.
So when did you finally get your own bike?
When I was 18 or 19, somewhere around there. Yeah, so the story behind that was I really wanted a dirt bike growing up. We really just couldn't afford it. When you have 4 kids and you're taking care of all of them, you can't really buy that kind of stuff, and then a trailer to transport it. So to get my foot in the door, I reached out to Sandia Speedway and the drag strip.
Cool.
And then I ended up getting a job at Sandia Speedway, working for Charlie Fagan. He was a huge, huge help. And then I was corner working a Southwest Motorsports race, and I met a guy who was selling a Honda CR125 for pretty cheap. So I was like, I have a job, I have a paycheck, I'm going to buy this bike. So
That's cool.
yeah.
How old? So you were 18 at that point. And how did you find out about the Sandia Motorsports, the racetrack?
Yeah, so I'd been going there my whole life. So my dad was super into racing, so he was big into motorsports. So we would go there sometimes during the summer, Saturday night, we would go check out the oval races. And I kind of just really loved that, loved watching the people riding around in the pits, liked the environment. Back when it was, it was Sandia Speedway, the Napa Speedway, and we went through all of that, so it's always been a part of my life.
Did your brothers go with you also, or is it just you and your dad?
Sometimes they would go, sometimes the whole family would go, but for the most part, I just remember it being my dad and I.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Steve?
I
Do you
think
have a
that's
daughter?
awesome. I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we were out just this past Sunday. We took
Cool.
scramblers out, the dirt bikes and the flat trackers, Tyson's and Jimmy V Hills, Grey Wolf. And it's funny because I'm trying to get my daughter to like just get comfortable on the bike, and I've got this TS250, which honestly is kind of a tall bike. It's it's a bigger bike than a beginner probably would feel comfortable on, right? I mean, like you rode it. It's a little torquey. It's kind of a cool little bike, but she's just not comfortable on that bike yet. So a friend of ours bought a little electric bike, little Razor for his son, and it's a tiny little thing, and she got on that and started getting comfortable balancing, and now she just wants an electric bike.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's a good way to start.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I've been building this little electric dirt bike for years. Been talking about it for years, and it's been stuck away in storage. So I think I'm going to pull it out now. It's built on a little I think it's a KE100 frame.
Sweet.
So I'm gonna pull it out, and Grey Wolf is gonna help me finish building it, and that way she can go out there on the dirt bike, electric, and really get a feel for a normal size bike, and get her confidence for a gasoline powered bike.
Definitely.
So I think if her and Christy, if there was one of those contests to see who could go the slowest and keep upright, I think they would both win naturally.
Yeah.
I couldn't even like fathom it. I was like, they're doing less than a mile an hour and they're still staying upright.
No, it's so
How are
true.
they not falling over?
I don't know. I think Christy's got her beat though. I don't think I've seen anybody go that slow and keep it
That's
upright.
funny, Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
They
great
could-
balance.
You could win all the contests in the world.
Yeah.
No kidding.
They could be your ringers, dude. You have all those
Absolutely.
Harley events. And
Yeah, where they just have to balance.
Yeah, just put Christy out there and she'll
It's
smoke
total
them.
fear. That's what it is. Fear of falling.
But I think, like, I don't have kids, but I think, you know, for like a daddy's girl to take to the track would probably be like one of the coolest things as a father to be able to share, especially like with his daughter, because there's always like that daddy's girl, right?
Sure.
And to be like a dad and take your daughter out, like that's got to be, in a weird way, kind of almost cooler than taking a son out, right?
I think so. I mean, you could speak to this as being a daughter who got into it, right? But for me, you almost assume a son is going to be into that stuff. So when your daughter's into stuff like that, it's kind of cool. Like my youngest, Ashley, who we were talking about, you know, when I love fly fishing. That's like the other thing I do when I don't motorcycle. But she really got into it, and it was like, yeah, that's cool. You know, we can go to the river and we can start, you know, fishing and stuff, and it's cool. So yeah, when it comes to motorcycles, if she can get excited about it, it would really it would be super cool.
Are I mean, every parent has their favorite. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right? Are you
I have
favorite?
no favorites.
I'd like to think that I am.
Sure, Steve.
Yeah, I would like to think that I am. Yeah, definitely. No, me and my brothers we're very different. And my dad, he's got a lot of different hobbies, so he connected with each one of us in a different way.
Yeah, that's
and mine
cool.
was definitely the motorsports aspect. My brothers, they have the smarts, you know, they're all in engineering, but I had kind of the outdoorsy, let's go fast.
Nice.
And do all the things on the weekends. So.
Does your dad still go to the track with you?
Not as much. So actually, once I got in like my own dirt bike as an adult, he wasn't really part of that as much, just because I lived on my own and I lived on the other side of town. So I kind of did that part on my own. It wasn't until recently that he's been helping me out with my bike and getting it ready for hopefully some racing this season.
Cool.
Yeah.
So when you started working was it Sandia Speedway at that point?
Yes.
When you were 18? And you got introduced to Charlie. And it's Charlie Flanagan, is that right?
Fagan.
Yeah.
He's the guy that, for our listeners, he owns Sandia Speedway Motorsports, right? And that's the track that we all go to for flat tracking and road racing and whatnot. It's the only track in New Mexico as far as I know, right? So people from all over the state go to this track.
Well, the only track close to Albuquerque, that's
right. There's Arroyo Seco.
Seco,
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So besides Arroyo Seco, it's one of the only other tracks. You can edit that out, right?
Can't edit the video.
But I remember going to that track probably about 15 years ago when the motocross section was set up.
Yeah.
And that's when I was racing motocross, and it was packed. The flat track really wasn't that big at that point. I didn't really see a whole lot of the road racing, but I remember the motocross track every Sunday was packed out. And then I stopped going. Obviously, started moving over to vintage bikes and road racing a little bit more. And since then, in the last couple of years that I've gone back, the attendance level is 1/5 of what it used to be.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So what was that like when you first went in? I mean, can you kind of give us a walkthrough from your perspective?
Yeah.
Of
What
happened to
year
that
was
track?
that? Do you remember?
2013
So it
is
wasn't
when I started.
that long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 years, right?
Yeah.
But was that still in the heyday? I mean, tell us about it.
Well, so I've got a lot of background with the track. So I've went there when the motocross track was there. So I know what you're talking about. You know, there was a ton of people. I kind of have been there through all the phases when they built the clay track. I remember going to the oval races at the asphalt track, and the stands were packed, and there was always lines in the concessions. They would sell T-shirts. Then they built the sand drag track, which was really cool. And then I don't know if you guys were ever there when it was Napa, and they had those like shuttle buses shuttling people from the parking lot to the different tracks.
It was that busy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was
Whoa.
constantly packed.
Do you know what year that was?
Oh, I don't know. I was young.
Yeah.
So
You're still young, so it's relatively speaking.
probably like 2009, somewhere around there, I would think.
Yeah, because I think I remember hearing about the Napa Speedway.
Yeah, I don't remember. Or it was probably earlier than that, actually. Probably when I was like in middle school. So,
Wow.
so somewhere mid 2000s. that it was pretty packed. And then when I started working there, it wasn't like that anymore.
No, it was already sort of come down.
It was already in the struggle. I started when it was doing okay, so they still had the sand drag track, which was really cool. I remember a decent amount of people came to that, and then after that, it was kind of, there was some hard times. There was a lot of things that went on at the track that people didn't know about, struggles that the track went through, that Charlie went through, that a lot of people didn't know about. You know, you hear a lot of rumors, you make a lot of assumptions as to, you know, like, they're not putting money into the track, they're not doing this, and really there's more to the story than that. So I got to experience that and see it firsthand and kind of be there with Charlie and Nancy as we figured things out and tried to get attendance.
So what kind of struggles are we kind of like referring to? Is it financial or bad business decision, personal struggles? Because, you know, for a lot of our listeners and a lot of our guests that have been at that track for a long time, you know, a lot of them just kind of have like a bad taste in their mouth. They they can't really embellish on, this is exactly what happened, when it happened, and this is why the track is in disarray. All they can kind of relate to is that, like, you know, and I hate to say this, but Charlie's a difficult person to work with. There's not money being put into the track, all those things that you mentioned. So what were you privy to that the rest of us weren't?
Yeah, so I think there was a lot of people just assume that Charlie makes all the decisions, and that was kind of frustrating to deal with because we got a lot of backlash. And even when I worked there, people were like, well, why don't you just tell him to do this? Or you're like his right hand, just tell him to do this. And that wasn't the case. There was a lot of hands in the pot. Whenever we made a decision, he had to go through every person that had a piece of the track financially. And then there was also a lot of legalities with where the track actually is, which I don't know if you guys know this, but that's why they had to remove the sand drag track, because of where the line was, where someone else owned the land technically, and it was just, there was a lot of legalities involved that a lot of people didn't know. And then financial issues, you know, there's a lot to maintain at the track. Yeah. And people just didn't want to pay the money, and it's hard, and I get it. We're in New Mexico. You don't want to pay these absurd track fees.
Sure. But
at the same time, when you're taking care of that many different things, it gets really expensive.
I would assume the liability of having that many people out there doing that many different things is expensive too, insurance and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot more workers that he had to pay than I think people realize. Like, you know, we have, for the clay racers, we've got multiple people scoring, we've got the announcer, we've got flaggers, concession people, the ambulance workers. So there's just a lot of hands involved in the track.
I mean, personally, from owning a small business, well, several, and knowing how difficult and how much stress that puts on me, I could only imagine how difficult that would be to run a full-fledged track where you have cars, you have motorcycles, you have flat tracks, motocross, oval track for, you know, sprint cars. I mean, I don't know how somebody could honestly keep that all together.
Dealing with the public.
And the public.
And you're talking about type A personalities out there racing. I mean, these aren't like your quiet mom coming in to get a coffee, right? I mean, you're talking about guys that are on octane all the time.
Right.
That would just, oh my gosh.
Not to mention, like, you know, I'm sure the state is getting new regulations passed down upon them about gas and noise ordinances and things like that.
Yeah.
So how do you keep up with all that? I mean, I think we might be lucky in New Mexico that we don't have as many regulations and restrictions as other states do, and that might be one of the reasons why our track is still up and running.
Yeah.
But I mean, where's the middle ground?
So from your experience, you know, seeing that, you said you kind of came in at the tail end of it.
Yeah.
Those couldn't have been the only reasons, though, why attendance fell off, because it almost seems like you could deal with the financial stuff if there's enough people still coming and watching and racing, right?
Yeah.
So what was the other factor?
I think, and personally, I think a big part was just the lack of, like, marketing knowledge, honestly. A lot of people knew how to race. We knew the rules, we knew how to run races, but at the time we didn't have people that knew how to advertise the track.
Oh, that's interesting.
So when you think about it, you know, a lot of people didn't know that Sandy Speedway exists, and then it does exist, but it's really far. So you want to go watch a race on a Saturday night, and you're having to drive pretty far from town.
Yeah.
And then it gets pretty pricey. So I think it wasn't being marketed in the correct way, and that was just lack of knowledge, lack of people. And I came in to help with that. So that's why Charlie had me working there, but I was barely starting college, so I didn't really have that knowledge.
Because that's what you do now, right?
Yeah, marketing, yeah.
So now, with a little bit of that like hindsight and your experience now, marketing, where do you work? Mariposa?
Yeah, Mariposa Marketing.
What would you do now?
I have so many ideas now, honestly. But the problem is a lot of it would take money, and then I just keep thinking there's so many rolling aspects to the racetrack. There's so many different groups and so many different clubs, and each club has its own rules and its own financial parts to being able to run at the Speedway. So I still think it would be pretty difficult, and I think just because of how it was run in the past, I think there was a little bit of disorganization. So it would take a decent amount of cleaning up to get there.
Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's savable?
Yeah, I do.
With the right, are you thinking more financial would save it?
I think it's definitely savable, especially with like groups like your guys's. So Rust is Gold, once I heard about like what you guys were doing and getting together, it's these kind of groups and these kind of people like you that are going to save that track. Honestly.
Oh geez, pressure's on, Steve.
Yeah, no pressure.
So here's a question for you then. What is you talk about us bringing people in, but to be honest with you, we struggle a little bit getting, like younger blood in here. Yeah. Starting to see a little bit. That's why we drag my daughter out there, and our buddy Eric's son and our buddy Grey Wolf, Jimmy, he drags his son out there because we're trying to inspire those kids to get excited about it. But do you think we can do that? I mean, do you really think that there's enough interest in the next generation of kids to make it happen? It's
funny you say that. So a really close friend of mine, Connor Duffy, and I were chatting about that the other day, about how it's one of our goals. Like we both thought about how we can make an impact on the kids, because that's really where it's going to start. Like we can make all of these clubs and all of these groups for adults, but really we have to start them young. And so lately I've been trying to think of ideas like that. I think a big part of growing up is when I was growing up, the motorsports world seemed so competitive. So I was like, there's no way I could ever get into it. And then when I got closer to being an adult, I was like, well, it's already too late. So I think if we were really able to promote like, hey, you can get into motorsports and it's not this scary competitive thing and it doesn't have to be super expensive. Like you could just really do it as a hobby that you go out with your family on the weekends and enjoy it. Even if your parents didn't grow up riding dirt bikes, like, get your kid a small little pit bike and teach them and just enjoy it. So I think we really need to start programs to promote like just like casual, laid back kind of environment rather than let's go race motocross and be competitive.
Yeah, especially when you see like arena cross now. It's like, God, that's got to be intimidating. Triple flips and stuff. And you're just like, So, we bring this up only because I think it's the trend, and sometimes people complain about us bringing up the gender aspect of this. But as a young woman, you have ideas about marketing and bringing in some fresh blood into the motorcycle community. Are you optimistic? Do you see it happening?
Yeah, I'm super optimistic, especially after getting my foot in the door. I've had nothing but support ever since I started working at the racetrack. The community behind it is extremely supportive and always willing to help. So I think there's definitely a lot of hope and a lot of things that we can do to really promote, getting the younger generations interested in starting.
Yeah.
So you yourself, you also like to race, right?
Yeah.
But you race in a different class.
Yeah.
So what are you currently working on and riding?
Yeah, so right now I ride an RMZ 250. I actually desert race dirt bikes. So I race as part of the Gasset Off-Road Series, so that's pretty cool. I've only done a handful of races now, but that's kind of what I'm prepping for this year, to really get into it and get back on those tracks.
So explain to us this desert style race that you're into. Like, what is it? Where do you guys usually take place?
Yeah.
How long is the distance? All that kind of stuff.
Sure. So desert races, they're usually single tracks out in the middle of nowhere. So the first race that I did was in Las Cruces. Literally, you drive out to the middle of the desert and you pit there. So the loops are usually around 30 miles. And then the amount of loops you do depends on the class. So like women's C class, typically we do 2 loops. So I'm riding about 60 miles. and they start in waves, so they'll have like the pro classes go, B classes, C classes, and it's a timed race, so you're basically running on time. You stop in pit halfway through, fill up on gas, go again. So you have to use a lot of endurance. They're long, but they're really fun. Yeah.
Now, what made you get into this versus motocross?
I think just how I started riding, honestly. So I started riding from Sandia Speedway. That's where I learned. Charlie let me store my bike there, so I would just ride out from the track behind there in the desert area and ride around the dunes, and that's where I learned, and I fell in love with single tracks. Then I moved to the west side, so some people go for runs and stuff after work. I was riding single tracks, so I fell in love with it, and I actually didn't know about desert racing until I was riding one time out in the middle of the desert, and my chain broke, and I was like, oh no, like what am I gonna do? And oddly enough, I look up and I was like, okay, well I have to figure out, I'm like super far from home right now. And there was a guy on a dirt bike like in walking distance from me, so I go over to him, and his bike's broken too. So he had a buddy on the way, so a guy came and picked us up, and I'm so grateful for them because they were able to get me and my bike home. But the guy that picked us up was like, oh, like we just started desert racing for this Gas It Off-Road series. Like my daughter just got into the C class, like super low pressure, you should try it out.
Oh wow.
So
cool.
yeah.
So what's it called? It's called the Gas
It Off-Road series. Yeah.
Okay, and is it here in New Mexico? Is that does it go national, or is it just a New Mexico
It's just
thing?
New Mexico, so they'll travel around like Espanola, Las Cruces, Carlsbad. They have about one race a month. So
how many of these have you done?
3 now.
3?
Yeah.
And were they all in Las Cruces?
No, Las Cruces, Espanola, and Cuba.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
So-
actually sounds kind of cool.
It
'cause you
sounds
get to
awesome.
see the state.
I've never heard of
It
this.
is
Me neither.
awesome.
This is like
Yeah.
new to us, and
Yeah.
we try and keep up on everything, so that's super cool. So how can people find out about that?
So they can go to their website, just look up Gas It Off-Road series. It'll have the schedule, the rules, all the information. It's a really great community of people. They're very helpful, and it's just a really fun time. You go down for the weekend, hang out, race dirt bikes, ride dirt bikes.
Is it pretty low pressure, or is it pretty competitive, or are there levels?
There's levels for sure. So you get the pros out there, and they're competitive. They're very competitive. If they have to pit, they're like, fill me up and let me leave. You get into the lower classes, and I'm kind of like, whew, like that first lap was crazy. I'm gonna take a breather and.
That'd be fun. I'd like to try that.
Yeah. What did you have to do to prep your bike for this? I mean, because the first time you went out, I mean, walk us through, like, did you know anything? Did someone talk to you about it? I mean,
No.
what did you do?
So the first time I went out, I went with some friends, luckily, because I didn't have a trailer or anything. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I went with my gas can and my dirt bike and tent.
Did you still have the CR 125? Is that what you?
No, I had the 250 by then.
Oh, did
yeah.
you? Okay.
So I was super intimidated when we first got there because everyone had these RVs and like these fancy setups, and I'm there with a tent, and so I was like, okay, oh my gosh, like this was a bad idea. But once I got there, everyone was so supportive of me, and they were like super nice. They told me all the rules. They helped me do the practice lap, and then I didn't have anyone to pit for me. So a complete stranger, he was like, duct tape your gas can, put your name and your number on it, and when you come into pit lane, like I'll fill you up.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
so I felt it was just really cool. When I started, there was just random people that would come up to me and were giving me tips on like how to get my bike started the quickest and form and just really helpful.
That's
really
awesome.
helpful community. Yeah.
How many people did you say show up at each event?
Oh, there's a lot.
Is it growing?
Yeah, it's definitely growing. Yeah. No, it's a really there's a lot of riders, so they have pro classes all the way down to C classes. They have kids races too, so there's I would say hundreds of riders, and then everybody loves to go out, like families go out because it's a weekend thing. So you usually show up Friday, camp Friday, Saturday do the practice ride, Saturday night you just kind of hang out, enjoy.
That sounds like a total blast.
Camping, yeah.
Steve has like stars in his eyes right now.
I'm getting excited with that. Seriously, that sounds
Are you
like
gonna try it?
It is, yeah.
I would love to try it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know with all the things that we have going on if it's
Well,
something
maybe we
that
can get some sponsor bikes, and somebody out there will sponsor us. We can create a team.
It's Golden Racing.
Yes, no, that's a great
There you
idea. But
go.
wouldn't you like to try it?
I would. I mean, I'll try anything on a
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah.
I'll
I
be
think
honest
it would
with
be
you.
so cool.
So what have you learned since then? I mean, like, have you started prepping your bike to be more competitive in gear and everything else?
A little bit, not too much on the bike part specifically, but my riding style has definitely changed. before I was riding out, but I wasn't really thinking about form or how to be faster. So I've gotten really...
That's a good point. Like how does form differ from different styles of riding, in dirt?
Yeah.
Like, what did you learn?
Well, and it's hard to compare because I haven't ridden like motocross. I've done a couple like motocross tracks, like at the end of Southern. But with desert racing, like it's really important to know like how your body positioning is, especially when you're going through like sand or if you're tired or the whip section. Those get really tiring. So, I race C-class, so I'm not super competitive, but just for like my own endurance levels,
Sure.
like I needed to get, I've been running more and biking more just to prepare myself to be able to last those loops. So props to the pros because they're doing like 4 loops.
Yeah.
I'm only doing 2, so they're really awesome.
How long is a loop?
They're around 30 miles, yeah.
30 miles.
Yeah.
And they're doing 6 loops?
I think the pros do about 4.
Wow.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing 30 miles on desert/dirt, it's probably taking you, about like 7-8 minutes a mile? A little bit less?
Yeah, because I think, I'm trying to remember my time. Usually it takes around like 2 hours, and it depends on the course because some sections are going to take you longer than others.
Sure.
Like in Espanola, there was this super rocky section that we had to go through, and if you get yourself in a wrong position and you don't get over a rock or something, you're going to spend some time pushing your bike through. So,
Oh, jeez.
It really just depends. But yeah, they're long races, but they're so fun.
Okay. So it's timed. It's not by who comes in first or second.
Yeah, it's timed.
It's all timed.
So how it works is you put a little transponder on your helmet, and then they've got like a starting line. So each time you complete a loop, you go through that.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fun stuff.
That's pretty cool.
So you don't road race at all?
No.
Have you ever road raced at all?
Yeah, I've only done.
Do you ever
dirt
think about
bikes.
it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No, and the more I get into motorcycles and talk to people, the more I get into different styles of riding. Last year I got into flat tracking, and I really wanted to kind of do that and started practicing that form of racing, which is
Cool.
very different. And now that I've met you guys, road racing is in my mind for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be flat tracking for the first time, you know what I mean, competitively.
Yeah,
Like we've been
cool.
out goofing around on the track, but you're never too old,
Yeah.
Especially like, take it from me, Tyson likes to make fun of me because I'm the old guy in the group. But, my first competitive like road race was, I was 49. This was last year, and you can always get out there. We're racing with guys that are 70 years old.
Gee, yeah.
And it's an awesome thing to see somebody like Lauren Jury, out there kicking everybody's ass.
Do you remember Lauren when he first came in? He's kind of the older guy with like
Oh,
scraggly white hair.
yeah,
He's like
okay.
what, 74?
I think he's
Wow.
74,
And
yeah.
he's still out there racing on this R1.
That's
pretty
gnarly.
beat up.
That's sick. Yeah. No, I love it. I love just seeing everybody, there's no like cap on racing and motorcycles, which is really cool.
So when we had our kind of grand opening, a lot of the guys from the Sandia racing community came in. Did you recognize a lot of those faces?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've met, countless people from Sandia. I used to work the ticket booth for SMRI races, so a lot of the faces and names are familiar. So it's a really great community. Everyone's
Yes.
really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very cool community.
So what are your plans? What's your plans for this season?
Get my bike ready in desert race. I tore my ACL last April, so I was still coming off of recovery. So now I think I'm ready to get back into it. I've kind of been slowly prepping, but I've had a lot of help. My good buddy Connor's been helping me get motivation to get back on the bike. So that was a little scary after the ACL reconstruction. So he's been a really big support, and then my dad's been a good support too. So
Did you tear it riding?
we were practicing flat track, and I got a little crazy. I was like, it's really funny because I was like, it was me and Connor, and I was like, I'm just gonna go 2 more times, and then it'll be your turn. Like, I promise, this is gonna be like my best lap yet. And then I just went into a corner too hot, and I would have gone over the bars, but my boot got stuck on the peg, and it just ripped it.
Oh,
so,
geez.
yeah.
That sounds awful.
Was this at Sandia?
No,
Yours
we
at
yeah,
Montesa?
no, we had like built our own little like fun track out there in by Rio Rancho.
Oh, we gotta go check that out.
Yeah.
That's close to
have
my
to-
side of
Sounds kind
town.
of dangerous.
I'll have to talk
I don't
to
know.
him.
Did you see Sparky on Sunday?
Oh, well,
We're going to throw
crash.
Sparky under the bus. Sparky, we're going to throw you under the bus here. Our buddy Chris, that's usually on the podcast with us, he decided he was going to jump on my DR650 that I turned into a scrambler.
Yeah.
Tyson was calling it the Widowmaker, I think. And it was a great bike. I mean, I was
funny.
having a blast on it, but it's a 650 thumper. It's torquey as
Yeah,
hell.
yeah.
Sparky jumps on it and takes off and gets, I think, one lap around the loop and comes around again and takes it too hot. The rear end comes out from under him. And I
Yep.
just happen to look up when he's going sideways and down. I'm like, oh gosh.
Crash.
Yeah.
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 Tyson changed his nickname from Sparky to Crash.
To
now.
crash. Oh.
Well, hopefully it doesn't have to stick, but I mean,
I know.
it seems to be a common trend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
maybe
does.
he'll save himself and get
And then he
Sparky
took
back.
out Jimmy's flat tracker, and I was like, "You sure about that?" And he's like, "Well, I told him to go slow." He's like, "It doesn't matter, dude, what speed it is."
Yeah,
That's true.
seriously,
It's true.
seriously.
So yeah, I know. I mean, I could see how that happens, very quickly. And I was so tired. I don't know about you, but I'm not in shape for that. And it was like a good eye-opening experience to see just how many muscles you use that you don't normally use, and you
Yeah,
feel
it's
all of them the
crazy.
next 2 days. The soreness, but there's definitely a like a muscle memory that you have to work, so that you can do these things without injuring yourself. And as
Yeah,
you get tired,
definitely.
like you were saying, probably the last couple of laps, you were probably starting to get a little tired, and that's when you start slipping up and start making some mistakes.
Definitely.
So I learned a
Yeah.
lot. And if it wasn't that all the gyms were shut down now, I would be back at the gym.
Exactly. Yeah, we're forced to take it easy now, so we'll see. Just gotta ride our dirt bikes.
Yeah.
There
So
you
when
go.
does that start up for you? The desert racing.
So the season's already started. I'm running a little bit behind, but really I just ride for fun. I'm not one of those super competitive, like have to make it to every race. I do it for fun, honestly. So
Yeah.
right now I just need to do some basic maintenance on the bike and then enter a race. So they just did the March one, I think last weekend. So I'll have to check it out and see when the next one is or where the location's at. But I just got a trailer for my bike, so I'm really excited about that. So
Very cool. You have to send us some pictures
yeah,
so we
definitely.
can post them on the
Definitely,
podcast and on the
definitely.
webcast.
Yeah,
Do
okay.
you have any goals for your racing season this year?
Yeah, I want to make it to at least 3 races this season. And really the main goal is to finish the loops. That's all. There was a race that I didn't finish both loops. I only finished one. And then other than that, just ride as much as possible.
Okay.
Just have fun.
So for our listeners and viewers now,
Yeah.
we had talked earlier about sponsorship because it just had come to me as all these people that we race with, really some of these racers are really good and super fast, and they're always hurting for tires or chains and just leathers and stuff like that. And it just dawned on me, like, why is the community not setting up pages for sponsorship? And we talked about that also.
Yeah.
Because you're doing this pretty much on your own, on your own budget. Have you thought about how people can go out and kind of help you?
Yeah, honestly, I really didn't think about that until I chatted with you. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're not super competitive or in the pro class, you don't think anyone would really be interested. But I know I definitely recommend, like, I think setting up like a web page or even just social media would be a big help. So
And have you?
and I have not, which is funny
This is
because
the marketing
this is what I
expert
do
here.
for my
Yeah.
job. But it's just
Right.
it's
It's like the mechanic, right? Who
Yeah.
his car's always broken down and barely running
Yeah.
because you're always working on everybody
Yeah.
else's stuff.
Exactly, and I just get so stoked on riding. Like that part I don't even think about it. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to get ready for this race? Like, I want to go have fun. Like, you don't think about the stuff that you can, but it'd be a big help for
I
sure.
think on the flip side, though, like, you've got an interesting story. You're from New Mexico. People around the track know you, right? You've had a presence, and you're a young female rider that's entering kind of like this different demographic of competition. I think people out there would be willing to support you.
Yeah.
Help you out with little things. Even tires
Yeah.
here or there, chain lube, just basic stuff. I think you'd be surprised. And I know I've said this too, if you ever wanted to bring the bike over here at the garage and change out tires or do any basic maintenance, like you're totally welcome to do that. But I think on the bigger scale, to get some financial backing, I think you kind of have to. I think you should, create a website, a GoFundMe, and who knows?
See what happens.
Exactly. It doesn't hurt.
And I think that's such a good idea too. Going back to what we were talking about, like community and the kids, like if they see you out there, they need to be able to see that presence to know like, hey, other people can do this, like maybe I can do it too. Or,
absolutely.
Parents are like, okay, well, how can I get my kids in contact with somebody? So web pages or companies like yours and groups like yours are a big help.
Cool. Well, I know it's not much, but we have a Rig Garage sticker we'd be happy for you to put on your bike.
I'd love to. Yeah, I would love to, definitely.
We're going to put you on the spot, okay? And we kind of warned you about this early on, but do you have a cool story that you could share with us and with our viewers?
Oh man, I've got a lot of cool stories. I guess some of the best moments I've had riding, and this might not necessarily be like the coolest, most like rad story, but when I first started riding, I didn't have a way to like transport my bike or anything, so Charlie Fagan would let me store it at the track. So every Friday between class, because I was in college at the time, I would take my Ford Taurus, out to the track. The car barely ran, and then I would put on my gear, hop on my 125, and ride out into the desert by myself. And I was so confident back then, for some weird reason, like just I'm gonna go ride my bike. I'm gonna have like a really great time. And really didn't know anything about dirt bikes or riding. So I'd ride out into the desert, just me by myself, riding for a couple of months only, barely knew how to shift. And there was one time where I went over a dune and like down into this dip, and then the bike like stopped. And it's, 4:55, something like that, sun's going down, it's getting gloomy outside. I'm nowhere near a road. I don't have cell service. So I'm like, I cannot get this bike started. So I ended up having to walk my bike through a ditch to get to this dirt road and call Mikey from the track. And Mikey and Andy had to come and pick me up in the rain in the middle of the desert in my little 125. And I'll never forget that day because it was such an awesome day. It was like such an eye opener, but I was like, wow, like I have so much support. Like it's just those moments that you learn about the bike. And after that, I really took it seriously about learning how to maintain the bike and how to get it started if it stalled, and how much I can really rely on my moto community. And I just think about that a lot, like how far I've come and how far you can come on your own. And not on your own in the sense like you don't have the support, but I didn't grow up with dirt bikes and that kind of thing. But, just asking help from my community, I'm able to ride my bike, learn how to ride it, and here I am today. I've got my 250 and some desert races in the plans, so it's pretty cool.
What was it that stalled the bike out?
I don't remember now. I had all kinds of problems with that bike, actually. That wasn't the last time that happened either. I blew the top ends too. They had to go pick me up for that as well. And Mike and Andy actually rebuilt it for me. So Charlie and his team were super amazing during that time, just helping me out with maintenance and teaching me how to not stall when I started the bike. So,
do you have any suggestions for anybody listening or watching, or people that can have some input in helping the track pick up steam again? Do you have any suggestions?
My main suggestion is just bring out people, bring your family, bring your friends. That was one of the biggest roadblocks we ran into was, you had all these racers going out, but they would just bring themselves or one or two friends. Be excited. You're a racer. Share on social media. Tell your friends about your races. Bring your friends. They offer coupons for a lot of the races too. Share that and just market yourself, market the track. Yeah.
Well, anything else?
No, I mean, it's a great story. I'd like to see the track kind of pick back up to where it was in its glory days. Mm-hmm. And I know you, Emily, probably are not, you're kind of more distant from the track as you once were, but I think you would be a great presence over there. And, I hope to see you get back in there at some point, because the track needs people that know how it operates and they know the community. And, I think it's vital that that it stays kind of like local, and we don't get if a corporation decides to come in and buy the track, that's fine too. But I would love it to see it kind of rebuild itself from the grassroots up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think you would be a good asset for that. So
it's
whatever
such
it takes.
It's such a community, and it's really like everyone there is really bonded in a different way. Like you just. So I mean, I would love to see the track thrive too. That'll always be like a second home to me. So, and the people there.
So we'll see you out there.
Oh yeah.
This season.
Definitely.
Flat tracking.
I want a flat track.
And
really
spectating,
bad.
right? I mean, we need to have people just go watch.
Yeah.
You don't have to be racing. You don't have to.
Well,
that doesn't have to be your
the
first
events
passion.
are super cool. If you haven't been to a clay track race, like go to one. They're super fun. Even watching SMRI, they're super cool. Like the bikes go way faster than you think. You can walk around the pits. You can talk to people.
Yeah.
That part's even fun on its own.
It's awesome. Hey, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
We see you around a lot, and it's cool to finally get you in here. And have
awesome.
you sit next to Cash and
I know.
be a part of the podcast.
As he's snoring
The man
away.
of the hour here.
Thanks again. Do you have an Instagram account that people can go check you out?
Sure, yeah. So I have an Instagram. The handle is at EMYYEMS, so it's MEMs. And then Facebook's just under Emily Romero. Yeah.
Awesome. Did you want to plug your business, your work?
Oh yeah, I work for Moneyposa Marketing, so yeah, follow us, look us up online, and I'm here to answer any questions, or if anyone's interested in how to get started riding. I know very well how to get into it from not really having much experience. So
super cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Well,
so Steve, how you feeling?
I feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel good. What do you think, man? We got anything coming up that be interesting for our listeners and our viewers to check
other
out?
than like the YouTube series that I'm sure you're going to talk about, and we'll continue talking about how people can find us and stuff like that. We're just going to keep hitting up the track as much as possible. We're going to keep going out and flat tracking and wrenching here and knocking out a few bikes as much as possible. Like Steve and I kind of mentioned and talked about, like, this isn't a time for us kind of, idle hands and fall asleep and watch YouTube videos all day. But I think this is a time that we can start to kind of recoup and put out some good content for our listeners and our viewers.
Yeah.
We're going to work hard at it.
So we're going to be in quarantine here at the coffee shop, right? So we're just going to be filming stuff, building bikes, putting out more podcasts, listening to viewer and listener feedback, hopefully. And I don't know what
we're also going to be recouping from flat track racing from Sunday.
Still sore.
I'm still sore.
Right.
I swear.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like 3 days of this, and I was like, my left foot is my left leg.
Yeah.
And all my left shoulder. So this is something that, like, I'm sure most flat trackers know. But when you're really hitting the turns hard and you're spending a good chunk of time out there taking a lot of laps, your whole left side of your body gets all the tension and all the pressure. The right side is more relaxed. So for like the last 2 to 3 days, I've been like almost limping on my left side, dude. It's like, it's not coronavirus. I'm not sick, I promise.
No, I know what you mean.
I'm just getting older, and this hurts a little bit more.
Yeah, I was hurting in places I hadn't hurt in a really long time, but it's almost past now.
But the other thing too is it doesn't matter like your style of racing, right? If you're desert racing, road racing, flat tracking, each one affects your body differently.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I'm out there road racing, like my neck and my back get really tense, and my hands. Out here flat tracking, like the whole left side of my body. So
hip,
different muscles,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like it really knows how to work your body.
It does. It's good exercise.
It's great
That's
exercise.
the best. Yeah, it's fun.
Well, cool. Thanks for watching, whoever's going to be watching this, and thanks for listening, our podcast listeners. We got a ton of podcast listeners now. Got a great audience out there and great feedback. We have a Patreon account, so if you're interested in supporting the podcast, we would really appreciate it. Just go to rustisgoldracing.com. Big link, Patreon link, support our podcast. You can listen to us on every podcasting platform that's out there. I think I did a quick search the other day just to see where we pop up, and we're on things I didn't even know existed. So just search Rust is Gold Racing Podcast. We'd love to have you listen to the podcast, give us feedback, give us ideas. We're trying to build this community. We know if you're stuck at home now, you got more than enough time to watch the videos and listen to the podcast, so give us some feedback. We are going to be trying to put out some new merchandise. We've got a cool logo for the Rust is Gold Garage, and we're going to try and do some shirts and some hats and some things that really helps us keep the podcast going. So we'll put that out on our website when the store is up and running with the new swag. I'm rocking the hat right now, right there. Anything else?
I've got the old version.
That's the old version. We're going to have that too, right?
Well, I have this, yeah.
Cool.
Stay safe out there, guys. Take care of yourselves and practice good faith.
Absolutely. Ride safe, and we'll see you on the next ride for sure.
So let's ride. Come on, turn up. I got love cams. American rocker is a matter of fact.